It's me again, here to talk about Anabel David's Home is Where the Heart Lies. I really like this one. So, without further ado, let's get started with our costume.
So three, two, one. I'm
Oh
the
my God, the Tin Man. Oh, wait a minute.
Yes, I've taken this to another level because the Wizard of Oz isn't enough by itself. You have to just add a little extra zhuzh. I've left you speechless.
Well, I did recognize the original character. Yes, yes.
All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to pause so that nobody has to watch me get naked except you. And when we come back, I'll be wearing regular clothes. All right, so hi everybody. We are here with Anabel David today to talk about her book, Home is Where the Heart Is. And it is so, oh, oh. You know, books that you read always vary, but this one got me in my heart, just got me right in the heart. And if nobody minds, I'm going to read the back of the book out loud and I'm going to read a little bit from the inside. My disclaimer: I am not a voice actor. I have never been a voice actor. I will never be a voice actor. But let's go anyway. Let's go. Um, as a hot-headed college senior who's led a privileged life, Rachel is particularly frustrated when she's forced to serve community service over the holidays at a soup kitchen in 2007 Montreal. Yet the experience starts opening her eyes to a world she had previously disdained, especially when she meets Ben, a former Iraq war vet. Fascinated, intrigued, and admittedly attracted, she can't help but want to dig deeper into the mysterious artist/poet. But a broken man with PTSD and personal trauma who has given up on life is not easily won, despite the help she tries to give him. Will Rachel be able to convince Vet Ben he's worth so much more than he believes? Or will a life-threatening emergency have to tip his heart? And I'm not saying anything about that. That part will remain a mystery unless they buy the book and read it. But for those of you who want just a little sneak peek into the book too, I'm just going to read a tiny bit from the prologue, just a tiny bit to give you a sense. So, Rachel Johnson, you're a hot-headed fool. She stood before the cracked storefront window and picked the brick up before throwing it a second time at the spot that seemed most vulnerable. This time the glass did shatter and fall on the pavement in a satisfying crash of shards. But you go all out. Her work done, Rachel grabbed her pack and ran home, the alarm's ring fading in the background as she turned the next corner and slowed to a discreet walk. She had a spring in her step and was almost whistling with glee. No one touches my friend like that, especially not her boss. What a pig. All men are pigs. A sentiment I agree with it sometimes.
Only a few, you got to keep those ones around, but the others.
Yeah, there's some of them that are worth keeping. But, those ones are usually already taken.
Well, yeah.
So I loved this book, but there was something else about it that I didn't expect that kind of went beyond the kind of romance aspect of it. And that is it also seemed like a love letter to Quebec. So are you French Canadian?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I live near Quebec City right now because when I got married, I decided to follow my husband when he. I'm sorry, I'm a bit nervous, so I'm gonna stutter a lot at first. He decided to go back home because the rent in Montreal was just too big, and now we had two kids, and it was better for him to go back to his village or city. And I left with him, obviously, and I'm stuck here. I am. So yeah, I miss Montreal immensely, and writing this book was is a love letter to my old hometown.
Yeah, I thought that that was really great because I feel like in romance stories, unless it's historical, sometimes we get so caught up in the characters that the scenery almost becomes like not mentioned, right? Everybody knows.
Generic.
Yeah, very, very generic. And so it was great to read something where the setting had its own personality. The people had their own flavor. So that was really great. I know that when I write things like that, I'm like, that is a table. You do need not to know anything about that table. It has a top and the end.
Oh yeah, I described I made a lot of effort to describe in this book, whereas usually I consider that my writing is rather dry. I don't know if you've read anything else by me, but
This is my first one, but now I'm
all
going to
right.
read more.
All right. Well, everything else is fan fiction, though.
You said
For
that
now,
like
for
it's a
now.
bad thing. Don't. It's wonderful thing. Even Neil Gaiman says there's a place for fan fiction.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, some of them, someone won their award through fan fiction. I think it was Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
The Hugo Award. So at some point, it's good practice, and you get your point across through the characters, through the stories that you tell, without having to build a whole world. And
I always think of it as playing in somebody else's sandbox.
yeah, but you play and you tell your own story, even though you start on that you start in that world.
Yeah. So what made you want to write this book? Because I know you've written fan fiction for a while, and this started as fan fiction, didn't it?
It was my first. It is my first modern AU. I felt that I needed to write about veterans, and Ben wasn't supplying Ben Solo. I mean, wasn't I couldn't cover it within the Star Wars universe. I couldn't stay in that universe. I had to go to my own story. God, I'm so nervous. I'm such a wreck.
Don't feel bad because it's just you and me. Never mind those other people. It's just you and me.
Oh, okay. I'll try that. Are you wearing black socks?
Oh, yeah. You know, what am I wearing? Oh, I'm wearing socks with little robots on them.
Okay, cute.
And I can hug my leg. So if it makes you feel better at all, I'll just embrace my leg for a while. There's nothing that you can do that makes you any more embarrassing than me playing telephone with my foot.
Hello? Oh boy.
So what is it that made you want to explore veterans?
Well, it wasn't just veterans. It was also homelessness. It was at that when I started writing Home is Where the Heart Lies. It was right after Christmas 2022. Yeah, and I was a bit in a professional limbo, you could say. So I was really fearing for my own security, and I wanted to address the problem of homelessness. And when through my years of being an Adam Driver fan, I did see him be a character on Girls. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
He played Adam Sackler in Girls. It's one of my favorite.
Plays Adam Sackler in Girls, but his character is also an aspiring actor who I think it was season 4 plays a part in a procedural cop show.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He plays a bum, Mm-hmm. And it's only about 30 seconds to a minute long that we see him, and he's all dressed up, and I saw that character. And I knew him. I knew that character. And also, one of the things that I discovered when I first started interesting myself in, Ben Solo and Adam Driver was that he's a Marine, or he was a Marine. And so it put so many things together that I explored through my fan fiction, trying to always bring out that the war vet and the suffering, the PTSD that Ben Solo must have or will have once would have if he survived.
If he survived, goddamn.
I make him survive, so he has it in my fictions. but also I wanted it to bring it closer to literal home. So I have Ben Walker in one hand, and in the other hand I have Rachel, Rachel Johnson, who's an expat student, and she's also she's also without a home in a certain way. She's away from home. So I thought that I could bring these two together and have I have one make the other one talk.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to hear Ben Walker's story.
Mm-hmm.
So I make him talk. And through that story, I address my own fears and my own trauma of 9/11 and of going to war, or Canada desperately trying to stay out of that war. We got sucked into Afghanistan because there was no way around it. But when Iraq came up, only a few of us went through some, really serious negotiations that our prime minister did. So I address all these fears and all these traumas and even my own fear of homelessness through this book.
I think that it's another thing that really drew me to this book, because I read a lot of miscommunication. Like they would only get together if they would just talk about it. But this wasn't that. So from that perspective, it was really unique. It was more like there needed to be trust, and it had to be earned. You know what I mean? So it wasn't about someone misunderstanding someone else's attraction. It was about, I needed to let my heart be ready for this.
There's some misunderstanding. I mean, at some points, they're not really talking the same language, and Rachel needs to understand that Ben doesn't feel ready for anything.
But she is very forward. She was.
Oh,
she
yeah.
was very forward. I was just like,
well,
whoa, you brave woman! I could never say that in so many words. Just like, this is.
Oh, she's 23. You know what 23 is. Oh my God, 23. I remember 23. I mean, I obviously projected myself into that, and I wanted something, I wanted someone, and I just reached out and grabbed him.
Brave woman. At 23, like, I was hyper religious, so I was just like, I'm gonna get in trouble for sleeping at my boyfriend's house. I can't tell anybody about it. So I admire people who can be so direct. So direct. And another thing I really, really liked about it was, when people think about homeless people, there's a big homeless problem in the United States too. And people do that thing, you just walk by them. Maybe you toss them money, maybe you don't. A lot of people assume, like, if I give them money, they're going to buy drugs, or they're going to drink themselves sick. Like, they don't think about these people as being people almost. And Rachel comes to it from a perspective that these are forgotten people. I don't think about them, but then sees them as who they are, sees them as having value, sees them as being people. And I loved that.
Yeah, she's forced into it. She's and she, for all that she puts on airs a bit at the beginning, and that she's trying to be in her class as best as she can, she has a compassionate heart. So she doesn't resist, or she doesn't try to, she sort of just accepts it, because that's just her nature to go ahead and this whole story is a novella, and writing it, I had to constrain it very, very much, or I would go off and I would get lost in the weeds. And there was so much deep emotions that if I didn't keep it within a frame, I couldn't write it. Like, knowing that we had this interview coming, I've been thinking about it obviously for the past 48 hours. What am I gonna say? And yesterday in the middle of the night, I thought, oh, but why didn't I make her smoke? And then I could address anorexia, and it's like, no, the book is out. And you couldn't go there. I mean, sure, but I'm already on my sixth version, I think.
Oh my gosh, that happens, doesn't it? Oh, the very first fan fiction I wrote was my first time writing in the prose style. I had only written for comic books and things before. I had never written for a novel. And I wrote it and I was so proud of it. And when you write fan fiction, sometimes you post it chapter by chapter. So I posted
Yeah.
it chapter by chapter. And then when it was done, I read it from the beginning and I was like, I edited that thing no less than 4 times. Like, just went back and just went through it. And then I did a stupid thing. No one can buy this. No one can ever have this except for me. I had it printed as a novel. Oh, sweet. Nice. Oh, great minds think alike.
Oh yeah, that story is my 300-pager story, and it's like I had to have it printed. I had to have it exist, and I suppose it was a step towards getting my own book made, because it meant, yes, this can be real, this can be printed, this can be real. It meant it was a step on my way to publishing.
Yeah. It's funny because we're talking about like the reasons why you think things or do things, like there were traumas that you had that you put into the stories. I definitely feel like that. Like I've had times where I've been writing and I just burst into tears. I just hit something in my heart that I didn't even know lived there. And I have a really good cry. Sometimes it's like a snot-filled cry, like a bad one.
Those are the good ones.
If you're not crying like an ugly person, then you're not really crying.
Oh yeah, and it's so scary at the same time, because it brings this out in you, and then you're gonna give this to total strangers, and it's like, what have I done? What am I doing? What am I saying about myself?
Mm.
And it's irresistible. You have to do it.
Mm.
You have to do it.
It's I was thinking, like, when you bringing up your book you had printed is so fantastic, because I'm getting older, and I know everyone will yell about, no, nobody's really old, but I started thinking about wanting to get books printed. Number one, because I put a lot of work into them. Number two, because I saw it as another way to share what I've made with the world. But number three, I wanted something to outlive me. I wanted something like paperback tucked away, so that way if a grandkid is going through a box, they're going to find this horrible book of smut that I wrote.
But there's not just smut. Smut is a language.
Yeah. I believe if my mother taught me, why is it that we can't let people watch sex on TV, but we let people watch murder all the time? I think I brought this up in my last one too. We were talking about, like, why is one okay and the other one not okay? You know what? You could be like the Dutch. You go in and there's just a regular channel, just the regular porn channel that everyone can access, and it's normal. Yeah, you've never heard of like the European porn channel?
No, I was spared. But yeah. Well, I guess there's a quality, but what you mentioned brings us to the current discourse on Twitter and on Tumblr, and there's such a. I have the 1984 attitude regarding sex, is that if you control the libido of a people, you control so much energy that way. You can really get them to become hysterical and to commit violence on your behalf. Many religions have used sexual repression to gain power, to whip their thralls and their followers into, and so that as the world gets more and more radicalized around us, we see a lot of that repression. Of course, half of that might also come from the fact that you have a lot of people who have been stuck indoors with their parents for the past 3 years. And they cannot express their sexuality in any way. They were literally, see no one for almost 2 years. And that's, if it happened at an important time of development, then that affected their relationship to sex,
And it's really, really interesting. This is completely off topic. I promise I'll get back to being on topic. But I would talk to somebody in the grocery store or in a place of business, and everyone was wearing masks, so I'd only see their eyes. And because of their eyes, I would have a judgment about what the rest of their face must look like. Okay. And then for whatever reason, they take down their mask to, like, I don't even know, take a sip of a drink or something like that. I'd be like, you don't look like what I thought you would. Like, it was scary for some stupid reason, because I would make this imaginary version of what their face would look like beyond their eyes, and then I actually see it, and it wouldn't match up, and it freaked me out.
All right.
Sorry. So speaking of faces, I know that Ben does a lot of drawing. In the book, he's very, very artistic. He does drawings. He does poetry. In fact, we have a drawing on the back here.
Yes.
Did you commission this, or?
Oh, I commissioned it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, she made a first drawing for me.
Oh, that's so gorgeous.
And when I saw that, it, again, and she did it because she read the fan fiction version, and she felt inspired, and that's quite an inspiration. And it gave me that confidence. I mean, fan fiction is a great place. It's peer reviewed to a certain degree, so if you're getting good compliments on it, if you're getting good advice on it, then it's encouraging. It makes you feel like, yeah, what I'm writing isn't total rubbish. I mean, I do go over some of my earlier fan fictions, and I find them cringe, but they were exercises. They were exercises in writing. Sometimes the story is still very, very good. I mean, I still love the story. It's the way that I write it. It's like, oh my God, what language am I using? Why am I describing this instead of describing that? But it's all, it's training, it's exercises. And if the stories are good, then you're good,
Yeah, I definitely feel like, because we're going to keep writing, and we're going to keep enjoying ourselves through writing. So, 3 years from now, we might look back at the things we're most proud of and still feel that bit of cringe, because if all goes well, we're just going to keep improving and improving and improving and improving over time.
Well, we'll never write the perfect thing.
Yeah, I hope I keep improving over time. It'd be a real shame if
we improve, but we'll never write the perfect thing.
No, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. And there's different things for different audiences too. There are people who would pick up one book and it just wouldn't work for them for whatever reason. But other people might pick up that same book and it will be like so moving to them. It will really mean something and touch them in a certain way. And I think that's beautiful. It would be sad if everybody was the same or had the same tastes, because it lets people, it lets us explore things. And that's one of the things I like about fan fiction too, is you can play with writing. You can explore. You can say, I've never written anything like this before, but
yes,
but let me give it a try.
Yeah, you can explore definitely different genres, different tropes. Different situations, things that don't even make all that much sense, but you just feel you go by a prompt or something like that, and it takes you out of your comfort zone, and there's no real strings attached, or there's no obligation, or there's no how can I say it? it's okay. You didn't sign a contract. Nobody paid. You're not going to get marked on this, and you don't have a teacher that's going to be angry with you or something. You just put it out there, and some people will like it and some people won't like it, and hopefully they'll be polite about it. And it allows you, to try things that you sometimes you never thought you would, because the character goes such a way, and it's like, you want to go there, you want to do this, I didn't know that about you, or I didn't know that about myself, and you write it down, and sometimes you just discover things about yourself.
Yeah.
And reading fan fiction is so raw and so emotional.
Yeah, sometimes it can be.
And it gives you so much insight into human nature.
Mm.
It can be frightening, and it can be enlightening, and it can be reassuring, because you can go, yes, I feel this way. I feel this way too.
I definitely have had fan fictions that have surprised me with the depth of emotion or the depth of storyline that they've written, whether that be in the Star Wars universe or outside of the Star Wars universe. There's one that I read that's AU, so an alternate universe. I think it's called Hiraeth. I might be saying that really, really wrong, but it's about wartime, and they he's a bad guy. He is not a good guy. But they somehow find these moments of connection because he's bad, but he's not bad to her, but he's still bad. So what do you do then? So it becomes like this very challenge of morality, so, and I thought that, when I was reading fan fiction, I didn't expect to be presented with that kind of moral choice, or that introspection where I had to think through, like, what would I do, or what should be done, or any of those feelings,
Oh yeah, well, that's the thing with fan fiction. Like I said, it's raw, and it's unedited most of the time. There might be some better readers to help you along, but it's mostly unedited. It's not commercial. It's not sanitized.
Yeah.
And that's very important. If you want to study human nature, read fan fiction, because it's all there. You don't have a big publishing house saying, you can't say that, and you have to clean up your story, or it won't sell.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's really raw, and I remember when I first started writing, I didn't know the rules of fan fiction. I didn't know what I could and couldn't do. So I read quite a few writers at that point, at that time. Of course, Diasterisms,
Yep.
which is one of my influences.
Mm-hmm.
And the research she puts into her fan fictions. I mean, she's read all the other books, and she researches, and she puts down the links, and that is such dedication,
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes and she does whatever she wants. She doesn't feel constrained by the material. She completely rewrote the sequel trilogy, and it just blows me away. And she adds that adult, that maturity to it that Disney couldn't do, So she adds the darkness. She adds some darkness to it,
Mm-hmm.
And that was so impressive. And I read a few others, and that gave me the knowledge to know, the quality of writing varies very much, and so that made me feel better about mine. and the stories can go so many ways. So when I doubted my story, I just had to think, but somebody else went this way, with Ben, and then went this way with Rachel, or and not Rachel but Ray, and so it was it made the genre, or the possibilities much larger. It made the world larger for me.
That's one thing I found fascinating about everyone who writes in the canon universe. Because really, I feel like there are very specific anchor points in the movies that people tend to spin off from. And to know that there are tens of thousands of fan fictions out there that are all launching from these same points, but are becoming these individual stories.
It's a
That
multiverse.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You
I
know,
wouldn't be surprised if the past few years, MCU and Disney, well, MCU mostly, when they started addressing the multiverse, and even everything everywhere all at once, if they didn't come to read fan fiction or become aware of the fan fiction phenomena and said, you know what, yes, let us include our readers or our viewers' imaginations and make them part of the universe. Give each character many not endings but storylines, and possibilities that, if we keep them canon, in a way, they won't be able to go there. They won't be able. So even Loki's story, with all these different versions of Loki, it's a fan fiction. It's ode to fan fiction in a certain way, because each little version of Loki is written by someone.
yep.
With a different version, it's a common universe, and then again, it's not. It's varied. And it lets a canon IP, I guess, it gives it more possibilities, I guess I'll say. Even Disney did this with Visions. Did
Yeah.
you watch the Visions?
I watched
I
some of
was,
them, yeah.
the art and the storylines and everything, and it's all Star Wars, and it's, yes, we have to be able to give that galaxy. It's a huge galaxy. There's
Yeah.
enough. There's so much room for so many stories, and let us write them.
Yeah. I remember you were talking about being able to be more free with writing when it's not going through a regular publisher, and I definitely see this with people's books I read that are self-published. I see a lot of things that I don't see in regular. I mean, I know it's getting more popular now, but I see homosexuality, and just like as a normal matter of course, just
Yeah.
like, oh, these people are in love, and no big thing made about it, just like they're in love. But I know that the publishing houses, they're trying to be more aware and trying to put stories out that have more of that, but there used to not be anything, because it used to be that
They
kind of
used to be
taboo.
so, yeah, it used to
Yeah.
be so constrained, and I think now the publishing houses are trying to just keep up.
Yeah.
Since self-publishing has become a thing that we have to do, because we just can't wait 2 or 3 years to get published, so we do it ourselves. And now the publishing houses are probably seeing that, yes, you have to open you have to open your minds up and your hearts up to different stories, to more different stories, because they will find their readership.
Yeah. Self-publishing is so easy now. It's and it can cost as much or as little as you're willing to spend on it. You can get cover designers, you can get professional editors, you can get people to do marketing for you, you can buy lots of ads, or you don't have to. Like,
No.
so it really, and sometimes that's for good and sometimes that's for ill. But I was doing querying, and I still do querying for books that I'm writing that I feel are more mainstream. Like I'm writing a horror, or I have written a horror and I'm querying it, but you send it in, they're like, queries are open, and then they're like, if we don't reach back out to you in 3 months, then assume we don't like it and then go query somewhere else. So the time to turn around is just so impressively long.
Oh, it's worse now.
It's
yeah. It's worse now. Well, they've been cutting down on personnel, and they've been trying to, cut some pressure their editors that are not being well paid enough to do their job properly. And that's on one hand. So that means that each editor or whoever receives your book is already loaded way over their heads. But now there's the AI writing that has just started, and they are being flooded, and I should say spammed with AI content.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Oh yeah, well there's a publishing house that just over the past 3 days that just said they had to close submissions because they're flooded. They're flooded with AI, and for every, and like each case has to be examined, and which each iteration of the machines, they're going to be harder and harder to detect.
Mm-hmm.
So, our fan fiction world may become more and more popular because, yes, they do try to get into fan fiction, but I think part of the appeal of AI writing is to try and make a quick buck.
Mm.
And you don't get any money from fan fiction.
No, it's for the love of the craft and for the love of the characters. And I know that people, when they think about fan fiction, they might have a certain opinion or other opinion, but when you're talking about these alternate universes that people put together, they really are original novels with names you recognize and personality archetypes you recognize. So, somebody might be called Kylo Ray, Ben Ray, Loki, whatever. But that doesn't mean that it's not that it's not original, because they have these whole different lives, these whole different scenarios, these different worlds that they live in and play in. So it really becomes its own original work.
Absolutely.
Canon versus canon verse, and those are obviously obviously can't always be translated into works of original fiction. Sometimes they can. Sometimes
some can.
A lot of work.
Oh yeah. You have to, literally untie all the strings, and take the story heart out and put it into build a new world when you're trying to go from canon to original. In my case, I was writing a modern AU.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easy to do, I only had to change a few names and a few scenes, and I do wink a few times at the source. But all my canon stuff, I could not extricate from the source, from what I wrote, and try and make it original. I mean, sometimes I consider it though. Sometimes I consider it.
Yeah. It's hard. We touched briefly on beta readers. Do you have like same beta readers, like the same beta readers that you work with all the time? Do you ever write without, or?
I mostly write without. I was lucky on a few things. I was lucky with home that I had a better reader. I had a couple of better readers, and then I felt strongly enough, because I had them, to go to a professional editor. That cost me.
Oh,
oh yeah, that cost me. I'm not making any money with this book.
2 to 5 cents a word, sometimes. It's very expensive.
But the need to get it out there was stronger than anything else. You know.
So, I don't want to put anything out there without a professional editor. Just my personal choice. I don't want to put anything out there without a cover designer. I think that everything else I'm fine to do by myself, but those two things I'm not willing to compromise on. And because of that, each book comes with a price tag that I can predict.
Yeah, it's an investment.
Yeah.
It's
It's
an
an
investment, you know, you put in your time and it costs electricity and it costs internet and then there's the cover design and then there's the editor, but you're putting your art out there. I mean, a painter, you know, buys the canvas and buys the paints and I've started weaving recently, so I had to buy, you know, the loom and the wool and the string, and it's I mean, I'm worth it. You know, it's whatever creativity I can scare up is worth the investment of time, and it's worth the investment. I wanted to write because I didn't have any money to do anything else. And within the writing, I could be a pianist, you know, I could be a sculptor, I could be an astronaut and everything, and I didn't have to leave my chair. Had to do some research, but I didn't have to leave my chair, you know. So it's that it cost me to get it out there is it's just more important for it to exist and to be out there. You know, that's why I'm so happy that AO3 exists.
Yeah.
It was such it made it. You're not supposed to write for an audience, but you still want to be read.
Yeah.
You want to be read. And when I was in the 90s, when I was trying to write, there was nobody to read me. You know, I wasn't part of any group, so it stayed on the diskette that I can't even get to anymore. Technology.
I remember floppy disks. I remember.
Yeah, and now they don't even come with you can't even get them anymore, you know. So
Yeah, I can't even get
all
a
that is locked away.
CD-ROM drive on my new computer, so all my burned discs from forever have nowhere to go.
You know, so that's really great. But that's, you know, that's what's wonderful about, you know, paperback is that these will still be there in 60 years.
Yep.
You
The
know?
Kindle might break, but the paperback book is gonna live on.
Oh, the Kindle could be updated and things might disappear from it. They did this you remember that? 2009, I think. I don't know who made that decision, but all of a sudden all the copies of 1984 were disappeared from Kindle.
Oh no.
I freaked out a bit.
Oh no. That's subversive book banning.
It was, you know, the world sometimes operates in a meta way that you have to be sensitive to. So anyway, do you have any other questions?
You know, do you have anything that you're writing next?
Right now I am so blocked. It's not funny. Ever since I put that book out, you know, I've been just I have that's why I went with weaving, because I'm just a beginner and I'm making mistakes and it's all crooked and it's all, you know, c'est n'importe quoi, but I let myself make these mistakes because if I don't bring my expectations down, I'll be blocked. I have a couple of things that I started some pages, and every time I sit down in front of them, it's like it's 300 pages, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not. I can't write 300 pages. It's not because I did it once that I can do it. You know, I have to have a story first.
Yeah.
You know, and right now nothing is solid enough, so I'm not writing now, and I'm not even opening the docs. It's like I'm letting the well of inspiration refill.
You have a writing hangover.
Postpartum blues, you know.
Oh, there we go. I like that
Postpartum
too.
blues, you know, because it was such a process. I was so it was not a relaxed process. I really felt so much fear and so much pressure to not disappear. You mentioned that before. That I really, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. You know, will I get that book out? I'm 53. You know. Will I
You
get it
don't
out?
look 53.
We all say that. Thank you.
I'm 41.
You don't look 25.
Well, I'm 41.
You don't look a day over 25.
I always tell people the lower quality my camera, the higher quality I look. Just get a really low quality camera. It'll blur you all together perfectly. But we're coming up about time. So do you have any parting thoughts you'd like to leave for our listeners and your readers, or?
Well, when you consider AI, to bring that back, and how AI will try to supplant the content, or take over the content world, you have to think that what will make your writing special is if you get into those uncomfortable places inside your heart and do bring them out. Do say how you feel, or what was it that Dr. Seuss says? Because the people who matter don't care, and the people who care don't matter, in a certain way. So if you become as authentic as you can, you may not bring in the big commercial contracts, but you're actually saying something. You're actually writing something, that has value in and of itself.
I love that. I think that's beautiful. And that's a great note to end on. So I'm going to make sure that when we put this video together, we're going to include all the socials down at the bottom. So anybody who's watching this video, go ahead and check out the bottom and check out Anabel's book, Home is Where the Heart Lies. And with that, why don't we go ahead and say, well, not goodbye to each other, but goodbye to all the people watching. Say goodbye.
If I only had a non-homicidal heart.